Second, and we're now have adjourned from executive session. I now reconvene the open session. Time is now 5:45, and the executive session is concluded. The participants in the executive session were myself, council members Eric Galtoff, Len Feiger, Gusty Kanakis, Tom Priest, Brian. Was Brian there?
No.
He wasn't there. No, so not Brian Odine. And Kate Schifani was excused due to a conflict of interest. Also, Town Manager Michelle Matier, Water Attorney Bill Kale, and Town Attorney Mike Sawyer. For the record, if any person who participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into executive session occurred during the executive session, or that an improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meetings law, I would ask that you state your concerns for the record. Hearing none.
Mr. Mayor, just point of order. So in that executive session, the council gave direction to its negotiators as to how to proceed in the 21 CW 3030 case.
Thank you. I forgot your correction. Okay, so moving on. Let's go ahead and do another roll call, please.
Lynn here. Kate here.
Dusty here. Eric here. Earl here. Brian, you there?
Brian here.
Okay. And Tom is in Africa and he's going back to bed.
Tom was here.
Oh, we went to sleep. I'm a loser.
Okay, we will all please stand for that. Pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Let's see. Next on the next on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda. Is there any interest in pulling any of those items from the board? Hearing none, I'd like a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion by Eric, second by Gusty. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next, we have the approval of the regular agenda. Is there any deletions, additions?
There are not.
Okay.
I have a question on that, Mr. Mayor. If it's possible, I didn't know if we would be able to move the, trying to see which item number it is on the agenda, the resolution, or no, it's historical preservation under 13A, up since we have people here in the audience for that.
That's up to the majority of council, but also I'm hoping no one is waiting to come in later on that. We do have people here now, and it's up to council. Raise the hands if that's okay to move it to the beginning. Okay, we will do that. So we are moving. See, what item was that?
13A.
13A, moving 13A to the beginning of the business items.
Sometimes you do that too.
Well, actually, we're going to move it up to 11. That's 12 business items. That's the discussion. Okay. Okay, do we have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the regular agenda as amended.
Eric seconds.
Motion by Gusty, second by Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Does anyone on the board have a conflict of interest on any agenda item this evening? Hearing none. We now open this up to the public for anyone who wants to address the council on any issue that they have that's not on the agenda, now is the time to do so. Larry?
I'll be quick. Larry Stone, 152 Main Street. I would like to welcome Kevin, who's joined code enforcement. We had conversation about bears because we're all very familiar with bears right now. And I know that the town works with Bale Honeywagon, and I'm wondering if the town can influence Bale Honeywagon to give us containers that are truly bear-proof. They do have a few different types, and some work well and some do not work at all. So we have a big bear problem, and hopefully wildlife will come and escort our bears somewhere else and they won't come back. But in the meantime, a better type of bear can, since that's who we're under contract with, would help all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Anyone else have any comment? All right. Moving on. Time for council to make a comment. Lynn, do you have anything?
I do not.
I don't have anything either.
Nothing specific, just Climate Action Collaborative. We've been attending a number of their meetings. There's more productive progress on building codes and all that good stuff, green energy wise. So good work.
And all I have is the Regional Transportation Authority, which has gotten their schedules going. I hope people are trying it out. And I'll have some statistics at the next meeting that see whether we're actually using it more or not. That said, we are finally in a sprint to the finish line to transition into the total Eagle Valley Transportation Authority. So you've seen all the buses being Eco-Transit still. Well, that's a big organization. It's been running for a long time. We've been acting together through this transition, and they will be folded into the Eagle Valley Transportation Authority hopefully this August. And so that's going to add quite a bit of efficiencies, and we also are working on our 10-year capital improvements plan, and that's an awesome process, by the way. We're actually working out 10 years of time of what our timeline is to do all these different features. Like right now, we're just increasing the frequency of the bus routes and also fare-free bus routes. So that was our main push as far as getting going right away. But now we're looking at multimodal transportation, what we call the last mile. So when you get off the bus, how do you get another quarter of a mile to wherever you want to go? So we're trying to work out those kind of things in the future, where we will have, whether it's a Shift e-bike station right by every bus stop, or whether it's a small, whether we can involve Uber or Lyft or what, any of those types of uses that are, if they can come up with an economic model for that, so that it can truly be something that we were trying to end up with a transportation authority that makes you wonder why you have a car. That's our goal. And the only time you'd want to is when you're leaving the county for vacation or something. So that's our goal of what we're going to end up with. So, and this capital improvements plan that we're doing is giving us the vision of how we can do that. So that's what's going on there. Oh, by the way, I'll also announce that we're no longer the Eagle Valley Transit Authority. We are Core Transit is the name of our. We've been looking for a name for everything, and it seems kind of basic. But then if you look at it, go to our website, you'll see what the idea is, what Core represents. And so that was the decision we made. So it'll be our regional transit will be called Core Transit. And also, we're going to name our buses. Let's see if I can put my name on one. Okay, so that's all I got. Staff reports.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In your council packet, you'll see that I did want to take this moment to introduce Mr. Kevin Rindy, who is the Minturn building permit specialist and code compliance officer. So Kevin just started with us last week. We've been thrilled to have him on board. He's starting to get his feet wet on a couple things, and you'll be seeing him around town. And I wanted to give Kevin a few minutes to say hello to everyone.
How you doing again? Yeah, my name is Kevin Rindy. I've been working in emergency services and government for about 25 years. I left Eagle County for a few years ago, and but I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be working and interning and serving people. So it's my pleasure to be back, to be here. So thank you.
It's great to have an experienced guy who can come in and take care of this stuff. So we're very happy to have that position filled,
Oh, thank you.
for sure.
Thanks, Kevin.
Welcome.
Additionally, I don't have a manager's report in the packet. However, further in tune with Larry's public comment, who knew? If Jay can bring up on the screen, we have been fielding calls from residents all summer long about the bear issues, which are prevalent throughout town. You don't have to go far to see the issues that we are experiencing. Some of these issues that are being experienced are due to, like Larry indicated, cans that just don't work very well. We have some cans that work better than others. Some of the cans have like these 3 cords that click on that a bear just, I swear the bear laughs when he sees the cords and rips them right off. The bear laughed at me the other night when I was clapping at him to get him to go away. So we're having this issue throughout town. One of the issues, as Larry identified, are the cans. Another issue is the accessibility of the cans to the bear. So first thing we're going to try to address is anybody who has a situation like you might see on the screen where there is no place to put your can in an interior location to keep it out of the reach of wildlife. We want to make the trash receptacle at Town Hall available for anybody that might want to put food wrappings in that trash bin so that they don't have it in their bin if that's something they're interested in, to help eliminate some of the wonderful smells that the bear might be smelling. Additionally, over this off-season, staff will be approaching council with the option of creating a program to help property owners create enclosures so that we can eliminate the issue altogether by removing the accessibility of any can for the bear. So we'll be bringing that forward during budget season, since that will have a cost associated with it from the general fund. But we wanted to bring this forward to you, let you know, we are dealing with this holistically throughout town. I gotta say, I think at this point, a lot of our residents are doing the right thing. We're seeing more than not that most of the folks are locking their cans, and the bears have ways. And so we are hoping that by eliminating the accessibility of the cans to the bears, which is actually already in our code, the requirement to not have the cans accessible to wildlife, we're hoping that that will help eliminate the issue. So we'll be bringing that forward in the fall.
I have a quick question on the enclosures. Are any potential enclosures subject to like setback guidelines or lot coverage, anything?
Right, Brian. So staff did bring, actually Madison brought that up already, because I tasked Madison and Kevin with creating the program and vetting through. And Madison quickly identified, a lot of our lots don't have the setback room. And I think, I don't want to, poor Gusty, I don't want to call it like a mass variance, but I think we're going to have to find a lot of flexibility in how we address this if we want to create enclosures and allow for that space, knowing that it might infringe on some of those traditional requirements. And that will, of course, be a planning commission and then council decision.
Yeah, well, that worked like a charm for me, is just popping up a fence that was allowed for my lot, but I could see a lot not allowed, and the bear used to knock over my can every
Right.
night. Now doesn't even stop.
Yep.
Another solution to offer everyone, and is one that we started composting about 2 or 3 years ago. And when you're doing that, you're not giving the stuff that's in my trash can is nothing that the bear can use. It's knocked it over once or twice this year, but it's never gone farther than that. It hadn't tried to bang it open at all. So if you compost, not only are you perhaps not pulling a bear into your property, But it's a huge methane issue, and methane is the most damaging greenhouse gas you can have. The only good thing about it is it dissipates after 30 years, but I think it's what, 40 times worse than CO2. So by composting, that's one of the best things you can do for climate action. Plus, it won't pull the bear onto your property. So just a thought.
And the community compost bin is right here at Town Hall.
Yep, right in the bin.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. So I guess we're at a discussion point then.
Well, then, thank you, Mr. Mayor. With the amendment of the agenda, we're bringing up the historic preservation policies that were initially discussed during the Town Council and Historic Preservation Commission work sessions. 9 options were brought forward, and now is the opportunity for more discussion to take place by public comment and continued ongoing feedback. One thing that I do want to bring up that was brought to my attention, I think a lot of you know that Shelley Bellum was integral to me personally when we were putting the construction use tax through. She worked for the town of Vail when the town of Vail implemented their construction use tax and was heavily involved behind the scenes for the town of Minturn when our ordinance was created. So staff brought forward the option, with the best of intentions, of being able to waive the construction use tax to save a property owner with historic designated property money. However, Shelley educated me that by doing that, that construction use tax then turns back into the original sales tax in the jurisdiction through which the materials are made, whereby not saving anyone any money, which was the original goal. So I forget what option that was, but that option will no longer be of consideration under the options available. So I want to thank Shelley.
Yeah, that was kind of a dumb moment, huh?
Yes, we have those.
Shaking your head.
So with that, I don't feel that this needs a lot of introduction. I feel that everyone knows why we're here and we can get straight to the point. So if council is interested in allowing for public comment on this topic, whereby most folks were here for the work session, we can get straight into it.
Okay. So the people that were at the work session that, work sessions only have people that are part of this issue that we've been dealing with. I want them to come first and ask any questions or express their concerns. Just please state your name and your address, and we'll have a maximum of 5 minutes. So, go ahead, Rob.
Hi, my name is Robert Creasy. I'm at 453 Pine Street, and I appreciate the effort. I think it's really a good process for historic preservation to be going through. I just had a few observations, comments. So the first couple of policies, they seem to apply to all historic preservation, not necessarily just downtown. So maybe throughout all those policies, consider whether it might be a townwide versus just downtown. And then, let's see, the idea of short-term rentals, consider whether that's within the total allowed by town, or is this going to be in addition to? And I think designating that one way or the other, just being clear about it is helpful. The numbers 5 and 6, where we're talking about the nomination process, I really wonder whether historic preservation committee should, or the town should, select which properties they think are important across the board, designate them, identify them, designate them, so it's not a after the fact when someone starts doing something, but say these are the properties we want to preserve, and then hopefully provide incentives to help preserve them, so that they're labeled up front. Number 7, the idea of residential, employee housing essentially in commercial buildings. I think designating that it's long-term housing, so not short-term for those commercial buildings. If you're looking at live work, maybe it's not a deed restriction in terms of the value of it, but that it's at least long-term rental. And then the last one was the use of residential uses in historic buildings in the 100 block. I can understand the desire, especially along Main Street, if they are short-term rental, like Earl was saying, that activates it. But there are other buildings which I think have a commercial history, like the Radio Free Minturn building. I happen to have an office in that building. I've had a lot of people inquire about that empty space that was Radio Free Minturn for residential use, long-term rental residential use, but almost no one's come to use it, look at it for office use. That's a first floor space. It's in the 100 block. Traditionally, I think it was historically, it was a commercial building, but so maybe some of those William Street, or if you're facing on River Street in the 100 block, maybe those could be long-term rentals on the ground floor. I think keeping it active in the on Main Street makes a lot of sense, but maybe it's not just 100 block wide, but more specific. Anyway, that's it. Thank you, Earl.
Good.
Evening, Shelley Bell, 470 Pine Street. A few points from the discussion earlier. With regard to the nomination process, I think if someone's property does get nominated and it does not get approved, I think there should be a time period again before someone could bring it back up for nomination. So for example, for 192 Main, if that was not designated historical, but then someone else bought the property and then someone else could nominate it, so that, you need to protect the purchasers as well as the sellers, I think, on that. That way there's a time period before a new nomination can come into play with respect to that.
But the new owner wanted it to be historic.
Then that's their choice. I think an owner should have the opportunity to request that designation at any time, but a general member of the public who doesn't know the history of the house shouldn't necessarily have that ability. That's what I'm saying. So other communities designate districts, Minturn does not, so it leaves a lot of questions, a lot of unanswered questions about what is Breckenridge has a historic district, Fairplay has a historic district, Minturn has historic wherever. So I think it's important to maybe consider designating districts as well. And owners do need to have a greater voice in whether or not their property is subject to that designation. And with that, I'm here also with a request to exempt the 100 block from the historic designation. I agree that it's important, its efforts are important, and our community can maintain its unique character and aesthetic appeal through adherence to specific design guidelines rather than being subject to a full spectrum of historic preservation regulations. The 100 block neighborhood is poised for growth and development. The commercial zoning in the 100 block, for instance, presents significant opportunities for development that would benefit from flexibility not afforded by strict historic preservation rules. This flexibility is crucial for potential buyers interested in developing commercial or mixed-use buildings, which could enhance the economic vitality of our community. I understand and respect the importance of preserving the historic and architectural integrity that defines our community. I propose a balanced approach by exempting the 100 block district from historic preservation designation while mandating strict compliance with established design guidelines tailored to maintain the community's character. That's what the design guidelines are meant to do. These guidelines would ensure that any new developments or refurbishment aligns with the aesthetic and cultural values our community cherishes. By adopting this approach, we facilitate economic growth, allowing property owners the flexibility to develop and refurbish properties in ways that maximize their value and utility while still respecting the community's overall design principles. It preserves community character by ensuring that all developments adhere to specific design guidelines that maintain the unique historical and architectural elements of the district. And enhancing property values will enable property owners to fully realize the potential of their properties. thus contributing to increased property values and overall community prosperity. I do ask that you consider this proposal. I understand the need for development, but we also kind of need to balance the wishes of everyone. With that, thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Can I add something on that?
Of course.
Last month, we did approve ordinance, I think it was 13, to amend the term to 5 years of protection if a structure is
Thank you.
non-nominated.
Okay. Anyone else? Lynn?
Lynn Teach, 253 Pine Street. I feel that there's the possibility of combining both the old and the new, keeping some of the old for the character that the people love now and adding the new, coming to a medium. There are buildings downtown that we know cannot be saved. They're just not in that condition, but there are some that still can be saved. And I'd like to see that happen more than just redeveloping the whole entire place. I know that's what my customers, which is what Woody was relating to, and I know I've given some of you those same statements from those books, would love to see. They hate to see the whole thing disappear. It would not have the same feel. I also thought that a little more further discussion, which I understand we will be having, on the percentage of the building that you allow to be changed to short-term. I think there's a couple of places down there where there is room in back to build. And you can probably get, with the 3-story, a good 1,200 to 1,500 square feet by going up. Adding on to the building that's there perhaps, and still keeping a small store in front. I think the downtown needs the variety of commercial, not just short-term, not just restaurants, not just liquor stores. It's really gone down, and I understand I'm part of that because I retired. But that's something that I think could be looked at when you're doing that thought on redevelopment. The other thing is on nominations. I think 2 would be good. I think 3 might be getting more difficult because the application itself takes time. And I think if you could find 2 people to do it, that would be nice to have that. But 3 might be pushing it a little. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Anyone else have any comments that were in the audience during our work session?
I had to twist her arm, sorry.
Just state your name and address, please.
Sure, good evening. Hi, I'm Kim Fritzler. I live down in Eagle. I'm with Cypress Smith and Frampton Real Estate, and I'm representing the Bellums along with Pete Seibert, who unfortunately wasn't able to be here this evening. And in the discussion and being quite involved with the town of Eagle as well, we all have our different challenges as small towns. And character, it's so important to attract people into our small communities where we're fighting for tax dollars up and down the valley. The challenges I've had specifically with 192 Main, I can't even get people through there right now because of what people know about your current historical preservation process. That it's there's a lot of gray area right now. And developers, time is money. We're all have experience with that. So we need to have better defined guidelines for the families. This is a family that's holding on to this property, not because they want to, but they are just stuck in the middle of the lack of direction from town government right now. So I asked to help the Bellums and everyone else in your town, like if we could get through this sooner than later, let's do a little black and white where I could call Madison and say, here's a specific plan, and she'd be like, yes, that sounds good, or no, that's a horrible idea. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
So actually, if you'd like to expand on our discussion that we had earlier, does that show you any light at the end of the tunnel?
It does, and talking to other realtors about what's happening, I'm very strong proponent of at least 3 people. 2 people could get together and and make a decision very easily. When you throw a third into the mix, you have a healthy discussion. So I'm gonna go down that road of 3. And yes, the different options that were ran through earlier today, I like the direction that you're going.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Is there anyone that has any questions or concerns? Like you just sat there. Come on, Kelly.
Kelly Toon, 531 Main Street. I would, I forgot your name.
Kim.
Kim. I'd be curious to ask Kim on the prospective buyers, what.
Comments need to be made
They
to
need
the
to
council
But-
only.
Do you want to come,
Joint account.
do you want me to come side by side with you?
Public comment is the council only, not the
Oh,
members
yeah,
of the
yeah.
public.
You have to address the council, not
Okay.
not the audience.
But I am curious to see what the people want to do with a property that has a house on it. And I think it has potential to build onto it. So I'm kind of curious if people are, is that case scenario where I think there's land to build on, add to it, but there is a possible historic house. And then being on the committee, I think I made the mistake of mentioning at one committee a possible list of houses that I thought deemed historic value, and I think I was not, there's a lot of comments negative that came back that I shouldn't be mentioning potential houses, and now it seems to be reversing. And now people want to know if their house is historic or not, or if it has any historic value. Because I did do an inventory before all this started, and I do have an architectural degree. And I honestly, when I graduated, I hated old houses. And until I moved into one in Redcliffe that was built in 1880, and I found out the history of what the downtown Redcliffe used to look like, and went through their history museum and saw all the old photos, and I just kind of changed my whole view on history of architecture and what's appropriate in today's time. So I just wanted to say that, and that my town that I grew up in, basically most of the old timers were forced out because of house prices. Yes, and I just want everyone to be aware there's always two sides. There's people trying to make the most out of their house and make a living off of selling their house, but there's also a tipping point when it changes the whole community. And I saw that in my own hometown, and I can never go back because it doesn't exist anymore. But there is areas that did do some pretty strict architectural requirements, and it was at the ocean, and they actually said for the new building codes, if you want to tear down your old building, you're gonna have to raise it up above floodplain on an island, which was near impossible. But you can do it with a lot of money, but in that way they have maintained their downtown character, and one cute storefront after another cute storefront after another. It's one of the cutest areas you've ever seen, and walked on the sidewalk to go shopping, even though you can buy all this crap online. And the real estate is in the millions and millions of dollars, but we're able to preserve their old buildings and make it one of the cutest shopping areas I've ever seen. So I've seen that too. So just because a whole new development like Edwards is brand new, and yes, they had lots more land than we did, and they could do anything from scrap. And my dream is to have the whole rail yard to have a new downtown area, and that would be my goal for adding on to our vacant lots for development. But once we tear the building down, we just can never go back.
Thank you, Kelly. Come on, Joe.
So while Shelley's walking up, if I can just make a comment that I'm getting reports that the sound through the High Five Media live stream is not working right now. Okay, I wanted to make sure you're aware.
Sorry, one more comment, Shelley Dahl, 470 Pine Street. I also think the town needs to define what it considers a historical structure. One of the comments that we've heard in the process of us trying to sell the residents on Main Street is, well, the Bell family is pretty important. It has a history in Minturn. I don't think that makes a structure historical. I mean, we have a bridge named after us, isn't that enough? I mean, but that's what I think really Minturn needs to define is what is a historical structure? A house that a family lived in that most people in this room probably wouldn't know today if they walked into this room. So what truly defines that historical structure? And I think you guys really need to identify that piece. And I think it'll help the discussion move forward. Thank you.
Okay, are there anyone else that is got any questions or any concerns?
You going? Oh, you go. Okay, you go.
Don't be shy, Larry.
I won't be shy. Larry Stone, 152 Main Street. One of the things that I think is really important philosophically to understand is that impermanence is what we have. All of us have our children that have grown. We relish the days of when they were younger. We have emotional relationships with the surroundings that we have, the river, the mountains, the reasons we're here. When I was looking at the old historical photos, many of those structures are no longer with us. We look at them and we appreciate them, and we know that we don't dress the same way that they did back then. We know that we don't build things the same way that they did back then. We have very big issues to address. We have a very expensive water system. We have environmental concerns. We have housing concerns. To bring historic preservation, which is preserving an old structure, into the equation, what we're really trying to do from the community master plan to every meeting I've been into is preserving the character of the town. And to me, I've said it before, the character are the people that live here. And we have amazing residents here who are creative, they're thinkers. Our children who grow up become creative thinkers, they become architects. They invent things where we have materials that are better for the environment. They have creative ideas that help us make really cool structures. I work in a field where there are extremely talented architects and designers who make really beautiful structures and surroundings. And I'm so excited to see what Spence and Steph are gonna do after seeing what they did with that little shed that they put in. And when I compare that to the mattress store next to it, and when I compare it to the shack that's across the street, no offense, with the Bellum house, and you know, the little structures, 151, 155, they're quaint, they're cute, but they're old. That's all. They were lick'em and stick'em houses that were put up. They were identical. They've gone through a few changes, and I know they're quaint, but when I look at Hotel Minturn behind it, I'm like, that's a new building. And that's an eye catcher, and I like it. Further down the road, there are buildings. Lynn and Woody built an incredible home in town, and they did it off of modern architectural design. And we have the ability to take the core of our downtown and let creative people come in and help us solve economic vitality, bring in more inventory into housing, and be more environmentally friendly. To me, to put a ball and chain on what has been, looking at those historical photos, I'm okay with change. Change is all we have. So I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you, Larry. Good.
Does that mean I go now, Larry?
Yeah, put some icing on that cake.
Ken Halliday, 811 Main. And, one thing I want to comment on is Larry and I are good friends, and our disagreement is that I my specific disagreement is I actually think historic preservation drives and can be a huge partner to economic vitality of a place. In San Antonio, I was fortunate to run a company that acquired a 23-acre old brewery with a bunch of crap on it and a bunch of old buildings hidden in the middle of all that crap. First thing we did was we hired a salvage company and a demolition company, thinking we need to clear this stuff out so that we can really get some space and we can build these big iconic things that we had in our mind. Then we started talking to other people that had done this and had bought historic sites, and we flew around the country and we flew internationally a couple places, and we studied some of these places, and all of a sudden we realized, wait, we're about to destroy the most important part of the project we purchased. We literally flew back and we went down to the site and we stood in front of those guys and said, stop, we want to buy all this crap back. Now, there was stuff that we got rid of. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say it, but there was stuff that we got rid of, absolutely. But what we did was, and this is, I think, the magic of what we were able to do, we picked out jewel box historical buildings, and then we built around them. We showcased them. Here's some examples. This was a administrative building. You can see this is an example of a building that was too small to be a restaurant. If you look over on the right side of the building, yeah, that's an addition to the building. We didn't go right above it, we didn't go behind it or to the side, we just went out to the side, and then that connects into a much larger building. You notice the change in materials going from historic brick to contemporary, so it really showcases it. Let's just flip through a couple pictures because I don't want to take too much time. This is another picture, you can keep going. This is another one. Let's stop here for a second. That gives you a sense of the density that we built around it. And it can be done very successfully. We did not accept any historic tax credits because they don't let you do this innovative stuff. And so what we said was, let us do it, and let us try, and we experimented. Let me go forward to another building. This is the old brew house at the end. You can see the dense development that we did. But if you keep rolling forward, we wanted that to become a hotel. Well, it's not big enough, and it was very clunky for a hotel. Why don't you go another one? And so what we did was we added that tower over on the right, but you see we kept it in scale with the historic building. So it kind of showcased that as a jewel box, and we were careful what we built around it. So I imagine, I mean, I'm not saying this is going to 100% work for Minturn, but in my own mind from that experience, I imagine jewel box historic buildings surrounded by really cool contemporary stuff like what Spence and his wife are doing. If you go to the next one, just another one, this is a house that we made into a restaurant. Again, it wasn't big enough, reminds me a little bit of 151 and 155, I think it is. But if you look here, you'll see the orange wood. Then we changed materials as we added on to the back of it. But again, we kept the scale. So when you're in front, you see this old historic house that's really cool. Now, why did we do all this? What we heard on our trip and what we learned from all these people, especially talking to people that have been there and done it, is that what people crave is they crave the authentic place. And so what happens is this becomes a competitive advantage because we have these historic places. We even took the railroad tracks, and I'm a little passionate, so we took the railroad tracks up, did our work, and then we laid the railroad tracks down. Why did we do that? Because we learned that those are the little cues to people that this is a real place. This is some place that's authentic, that's real. People know new construction from old stuff, and they like the mixture, and they like to know that there's a history there. That's what the folks that come into Lynn's store would say. If you go to the next, I think that might be the last, there's one more picture of it. The other thing that we learned is that if we do that right, the proof is in the pudding, because while we started out with market rent, we now are 20% premium on residential, office, and retail, including restaurants. And our occupancies are like 100%. It's become the place. It's called placemaking. We worked with a group out of New York called Project for Public Spaces for about 5 or 6 years in the early stages of Pearl. And what we learned is what makes these places work is the mixture of authentic placemaking along with creating some areas for people to gather. So I just want to mention that I love the idea of designating and picking out what our jewel boxes are, if we could do that. I don't know if we can. And developing around those and to bring that vibrancy into the 100 block. And I think in hindsight, the thing that I've learned and that I'm so passionate about, if we had lost any of these historic buildings, it would have been the worst thing that we could have done. And thank goodness we figured it out before we demoed them, because once you demo it, you can never get that back. And by the way, on those houses, I would say the 2 homes, it's not just those homes, it's also that streetscape and those beautiful trees. It's just something, those are jewel boxes to me. And I think we should protect them and we should call attention to them while we develop around them with this cool stuff that everyone, that our creative community can come up with. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Tracy?
Hi, Tracy Anderson, 1016 Mountain Drive. I'm not going to stand on my tiptoes. I just really implore you to think about the fact that there's going to be, we're on the cusp of so much change. I mean, we've got big development coming on both ends of town, and that is really going to change. There'll be some good with that, I'm sure, but it'll also be change. And in light of that, and in light of the fact that, you know, over the last 2 years and even prior to that, the legal expertise that went into creating this, you know, Section 19, I really implore you to find a way to at least protect those 2 properties. You know, I don't use it as an Airbnb if need be, because we're embarking on change, and I just think that would be some semblance of not change that I think a lot of residents would really appreciate. I know I'm not trying to sell a home or anything, but I mean, it's just 2 homes. I think it would really preserve the character in a visual sense. I think it would add to tourism. The town I grew up in was established in 1668. And I mean, they celebrate the historic buildings so much there that, I mean, it is booming. I know each town's different, there's different circumstances, but I just implore you guys to just think about all the work that's and the thought that's gone into it already. Try not to throw it away. But, you know, just with all the change going on, maybe let's preserve some stuff that won't be changed, please. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tracy. Spence?
I was mentioned twice, so I think I have to come up. Spence Neubauer, 444 Eagle River Streets, and also 161 Main. I think what we are doing is cool in our lot, and if you walk in, you see what my wife Stephanie has done. You can have that old world style, which is more Scottish and Old West kind of mishmashed together. And you can still do that today with some creativity. And I think owner input is key. I feel like what Gussie said is if you buy a property and then you can't do anything with it because someone else nominated it. So I do think having multiple nominations, or if an owner wants to nominate it, I think that is really good. I think the owner needs to have that input. And then the character that we have in the town has come from people back when the mining rush and the railroads brought all these people here. They took their land, and what did they do? They did what they wanted. And that's how we got that character, not forcing them to stick with what was there already. So we get that character by piecemeal owners coming and doing creative things, not by giving them a ball and a chain and saying, well, I hope you can figure it out. The only other thing is, I think with those 2 properties, 151 and 151.5, jewel boxing was super cool. I love that idea, but I don't know where you would go with additional add-ons with those. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. Does anyone else have any more comments or questions? Okay. Hearing none, any more comments from the board? I think we might be a little bit burnt out on this, but, okay. Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda.
No,
No? Oh, you have something to say, don't you?
I don't. I am looking, so we are, as staff, not allowed to take direction from council in work sessions. So we need to take this moment to get formal direction from council on which options to come back forward with draft language for consideration.
Okay, so my records, we're eliminating option 7.
8.
Is it 8? Is the, well, construction stuff? Okay, never mind. I put the X on the wrong spot. Okay, does anyone have, right now I'm showing options 1 through 7 being okay.
What I recall is that we thought all the options were okay, but not the construction tax one, obviously, and not the residential. I think that was option 9.
Correct.
And that we wanted to make a distinction between buildings with residential character and buildings with commercial character insofar as permitting short-term housing on the ground floor. Is that right?
Basically turning it into Airbnb or whatever, multiple units if possible, all those kinds to keep that activated.
Did we want to hear from Brian?
Brian.
Hello, yes. Let me
I'm
start
sorry, I
video
always
again.
forget about people who are on Zoom.
Yeah, no, thanks for, I'm easy to forget out here, and I might be jumping off soon to go get dinner with the family. But I think I would just add, in addition, thanks staff for putting together those options. I think as I outlined in the comments that I submitted, I would add that I think a lot of those are kind of duct tape and avoid the root of the issue, which I think Shelley actually kind of got at, in that you have it kind of currently set up where a property owner really doesn't want any sort of designation on this. And I think we should try to be thinking like how we can create a benefit to the town, the community, the property owner, everything. And that's the first 3 kind of comments that I put in that. I don't want to read them aloud. They're long-winded, as I tend to be when I write, but I would encourage you to read those as I put in there. And I think those are 3 ways that we could address that core of the issue, in my view.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you very much.
So, Kate, do you have anything you want to add? Yes.
I'd just like to focus on, involving the property owner. I guess that's my big concern is, making sure that they're okay with what direction we go.
Yes, I agree that, that the property owners need to have a say in this process. And I think that was one of the main hinge points is, and I think Larry brought it up, said takings. Well, it's not, legally it's not a takings, but it feels like it, right? So I'm hoping that with the option 9.
Option 6 was the one with the.
Yes, option 6 will open up that process where we can work together with the property owners to give them the space to make the decision they want and move forward. That's what I'm looking forward to. So I think I agree that, all of the options except for the, option 8, construction use tax, I support, and I think that's gonna prove a process that we can go through, and hopefully, come up with a productive way of doing things.
Should we take a straw, are we all in agreement about the residential option or not?
On 9?
Yeah.
I'm actually not in favor of that. Just because we just went through this last year with, the 100 block and having it on the second floor.
Okay, I don't have that one on my list. Okay, so I'm sorry. Fill me in on this. Option 9, which
Option,
one?
it was,
That
said
one,
it was residential.
Yeah, allow for residential use of historical designated buildings in the 100 block character area.
Residue, my take on what that we were talking about was residential use, residential structures. Now, is this the short-term rental thing?
No, I know on the short-term rental deal, we were talking like 50% being able to be front portion of the building being commercial, second, like the back portion being residential. But this was showing like changing the whole zoning back to pretty much it could be residential. Like say if it was a house before and then it went into a business, it could go back to a house.
Yeah, no, I'm against that.
That's what I thought people were against that.
Yeah, I think that's.
But I do think the short-term resident option wasn't limited to 50%.
Correct.
Yeah, the short term was that the living at your place was 50%, like if you had a business there.
Or whatever percent we come up with,
Yeah, as long as they were living in it, like on their, owned it and living in it.
So staff has direction to come back with option draft language for options 1 through 7.
Yes.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay. Now can I move on? We're on to business items. First item is Resolution 34, Series 2024, resolution adopting the Eagle County Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Yes, I'd like to thank Birch Barron and Fernando Almanza so much for waiting all this time to get to talk about your item, which was actually first. So thank you so much for your patience. So if you could both come up, I need to say additionally, thank you, because these gentlemen really got our entire community through the Eagle County Hazard Mitigation Plan, which was required to be renewed to meet a lot of federal level requirements that I don't understand, but they both do. So if you could take a minute, introduce yourselves, talk about the plan process a little bit, and Fernando, you can maybe talk about how you had to send so many emails to get everyone to do what we needed to do, but you got us through it. That would be great.
Of course, I'm Birch Barron, Director of Emergency Management for Eagle County.
I'm Fernando Almanza, Deputy Emergency Manager for Eagle County.
So starting up at the high level, this is the Hazard Mitigation Plan. This is one of the foundational plans of most emergency management programs. It is both a countywide plan, but it's a countywide plan that also incorporates over 20 jurisdictions, individual municipalities, special districts, public safety districts. Our goal when we talk about mitigation is, a lot of people think emergency management is response and recovery. A lot of what we do is spend the times when we're not in a disaster talking how can we reduce the impacts of future hazards. And that's what mitigation really looks to do. It says if we can't prevent a hazard from occurring, a wildfire, landslide, flood, whatever hazard we're talking about, are there things that we can do today during blue sky days that will mean that hazard impacts our community less? So what we want to do is we want to take advantage of all of the different jurisdictions that make up our county and say, for you, what are those top hazards? And then what are the areas where you feel there are potential opportunities to mitigate those hazards, to reduce the impact of any future hazards? So the reason we do this, there's a couple of reasons. One, starting with the most all-encompassing, is we want to help support jurisdictions like yours through this thought process of what are the risks, not just now, but going forward to our community, and where are those opportunities to make a difference in the risk or the impact to our population and to our infrastructure. The second reason is that we want to be able to make sure that if there are funding sources at the federal level that are potentially able to support your jurisdiction in projects that you prioritize or projects that you've identified, we want to make sure that all jurisdictions that choose to participate in this process are fully eligible for any of those federal funds that are out there. So this particular plan, it's on a 5-year update cycle at the county level. And there are a few funding streams through the federal government, which flow through the state down to local jurisdictions, the Building Resilient Infrastructure grants, the hazard mitigation grants, some post-fire grants that might come in and help support these projects that require jurisdictions that apply for those funds to have fully adopted hazard mitigation plans. So this is not, hopefully, just a check the box plan, but it is also an important box to be checked, just to make sure that anyone in our county has the information they need, has the fully adopted plan, so that no money is left on the table. But at the end of the day, a lot of it's really about that planning process and understanding that it's our job, Fernando and mine, and I'll let him talk about this process with the town intern, to work with your staff and recognize you probably don't have the expertise in the hazards, in the public safety landscape. How can we help connect you with that so you can work through this process for the jurisdiction that you understand much better than either of us? So we can talk with Fernando about this process.
Yeah, of course, thank you. First, I would like to say, Michelle, thank you for the patience of me sending you an email or 10, I don't want to say how many a day. But the process is quite, I won't say robust, but in a way that it's complex enough that even ourselves in the county, we were able to hire a consultant to help us do this this plan. And then also just because the main reason was that it included a lot of different jurisdictions. You know, there's a lot of jurisdictions that we don't think about, just like the rec centers or the Basalt Library or the Eagle River Water and Sanitation District. So a lot of the jurisdictions that come into this plan, they are very important for them to join us in the sense that this plan is taken by the county. And for us, it is more of a make sure that the county has it to ensure that we are in line with state requirements and then in line with FEMA requirements. But it's just a long, tedious project that started last August, and we're still working on it. Even this morning, we had a meeting with FEMA and the state just to keep going on that. So you're still not off the hook, Michelle, but still we'll keep on talking. But understand that, as Bert's mentioned, this is a 5-year. Every 5 years we have to renew this, and we start about 2 years prior. So I'm not saying that you'll see me again in 3 years or so, but just consider that these plans have that turnaround so that we make sure that we make plans for the future, not only for the county itself, but jurisdiction just as important as you are to ensure that you also plan ahead and have those plans ready to, you know, to in case of something, a major disaster happens or a natural disaster happens. I don't know that I want to bother you more with any details, but we're open to questions if there's any specific ones.
I'd like to start on a couple of things. One, this is a fantastic and very comprehensive plan. I ran out of time to review everything, so I just cheated and went right to mentoring. And so, there's the tables in here that are very enlightening for me. And you know, we have, you know, the first one is the capability mechanism. And I was pleased that we had a lot of yeses in that category, but we did have some, such as floodplain management plan and stormwater management community rating system, which intrigues me. I'm not sure exactly what that is. So we'll start there. What is the community rating system? How is that just pulling all the factors and giving us a danger sign or whatever, or what is that?
Well, you're very smart in the sense that you jumped just to a section because the program is about 235 pages long that wouldn't want to have you go through it. But in essence, the rating program is more of a FEMA's perception of how is it rated throughout the county for certain or specific tasks or areas. So in a sense, it is not necessarily that you yourself as a town of Minturn has a rating, but if it's the participant of FEMA's rating towards Minturn specific. There might be a rating towards the county itself, but not necessarily specific to Minturn. So it's not necessarily that a no would be a negative thing.
Right.
There are some of those plans in there where Minturn is covered in the countywide.
And then, where's the next one? Okay. No, not that one. This one was, the risk, medium, high, low risk, designations. It's here somewhere, 283, I think it is, yeah, okay, two more. Here we go. Okay, so the new mitigation and strategic actions table, I found that very enlightening. You have, for instance, the first action is to get backup generators for the town hall and the water plant. I think those are the two.
Yeah.
And that's considered a medium priority in case of whatever catastrophe may happen. Bridge repair was a high one, the Bellum Bridge, for obvious reasons. So that is one of the two high actions that we need to be on top of, which our manager's has had us starting on that a few weeks back. The new water treatment plant, that is a medium risk, and of course we've been working on that forever. So hopefully we'll be moving forward with that in a few months. Public education and outreach, that's a lower priority, but it's something that it is an important piece because we need to make sure our citizens know where the emergencies are, great evacuation routes, all those kinds of things, and that's important. Rehabilitate water storage tank 2 was a high priority as well, which we're in the process of starting on that. And then finally, the secondary water source was a medium, and that's more of a longer term for us, but we hope to get there. We're about to hopefully secure all of the augmentation for that, and so we hope to get that done. So kudos on this because it was very informative for me.
That's excellent. Can I make a comment, Mr. Mayor? So all of those recommendations and levels came from your staff. What is really important to us, not just that you're eligible for federal funds, if those projects or projects that address other hazards should be able to do something in a more robust, more resilient way. It's that you guys have a place to go to as you're developing other plans around building infrastructure or approving additional developments in the town of Minturn. We want you to have a place you can go back to and say, this is what our hazard landscape looks like. We've done the best of our due diligence to talk with the scientific experts, as well as the public safety experts. And this mitigation plan hopefully will be that place for your future conversations around development. You can go back and have something to point to rather than just go.
So it is an impressive plan, but I also just keyed into the Minturn section. And one thing that confused me a lot was the last paragraph under community lifelines on page 7, where you say about Minturn, there is no fire department. Maybe I don't know what a fire department is, but I always thought we had a fire department.
I believe the intention of that, and again, we can talk about this, is that there is a district, there's a station here, right? So where's the actual department language?
It says there is no fire or police department located in the town.
The intention of that, so it's identifying the fire department in that table, the community lifelines table?
No, above that, in the paragraph.
The last sentence of the paragraph above.
I believe that's intended to reference the fact that the district is independent, that there's no municipal fire department, but we're happy to talk with the team. So a good point to bring up is that you guys are adopting this preemptively before the countywide plan has been adopted, and so we do have the ability still to make minor changes like that if the language is not reflecting. Our goal is to make things as simple and coherent as possible, and so if there's potential for misunderstanding, let's get that changed.
Regardless of how it's classified, I mean, I think it's an important point in our any catastrophe plan that we do have fire trucks in town and a fire station.
And sorry to interrupt there. I would like to point out that it might have been a typo, but also the community lifelines right at the next level. There's this section where it starts with the
Yes.
tower, and they were addressing if they had a generator or not. So I wonder if there was just an honest mistake on this part where it was referring as to if there was a generator, and on the table itself we put no. And I wonder if under that same section just above it clearly says, right, I hear in your sentence and why it might be misunderstanding that there's no fire department. And then the very next table shows the fire department in the address. So I will revise that with our contractors to ensure there's clear language.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I can just make a note for the record, which Jay Brumvin, the town clerk, has already identified that Brian Rodine has left the meeting.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions for Birch?
That looked really good.
Excellent.
Yeah, good job.
Thank you.
It's very helpful to have expertise like y'all available to us.
Truly, truly. And it was a great exercise for staff to go through, to be thinking about these things, which are not always at the top of the thought process, and to have a several month period where we discussed that was really great for moving certain things forward.
Thank you, council.
Thank you.
Can I make a motion? Can I make a motion?
Yes, you can.
Make a motion to approve resolution number 34, series 2024, a resolution approving and adopting the 2024 Eagle County Hazard Mitigation Plan for the town of Minturn, Colorado.
Second that.
Find it out with Kirsty.
I'll shut up.
That's Kate's turn now.
Yep.
A motion by Eric, second by Kate. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. It is approved. Resolution number 35, series 2024, a resolution adopting the Eagle River Community Water Plan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think Fernando said that we started the hazard plan back in August. James started the water plan, I think, 5 years ago. So yeah, this is a much longer process that he will be talking about, which went into depths that I did not understand regarding data that they were able to obtain to better understand our watersheds, which was fascinating and mind-blowing all at the same time. But tonight, James is the executive director for the Eagle River Coalition. This is the same yet new organization, which used to be the Eagle River Watershed
Council.
You've
already forgotten.
I've already forgotten. Who does so much good work throughout our region for the health and benefit of our watersheds. So with that, I'll turn it over to James, who did all of the heavy lifting on this to bring this to Minturn tonight.
And I definitely did not do all of the heavy lifting. I joined Eagle River at the time Watershed Council in 2019, and we had already started this process and jumped into ED about 2 years ago. So I'm here to close it out and really excited to have this plan finished, and especially in the usable way that we have it right now that is somewhat unique to our watershed. I think you all may have access to the presentation that I have, so I'm just going to kind of wing it as we talk about what was in that. So starting off, as Michelle mentioned, we are a new name, but we have the same mission. We're here to protect and advocate for our local watersheds, and we are doing that largely this year with this community water plan. So we're really excited to have this and bring this up to our communities. The overarching goal of the community water plan is really set in the Colorado water plan that was adopted in 2015 that asked 80% of Colorado communities to develop these prioritized watershed plans to help mitigate undesirable future conditions. So most of the current plans that we've had in place, things like the Eagle River Watershed Plan that was adopted in 2013, or the Eagle River Inventory Assessment that was done, I think, in 2005 and 1996, those are looking at only existing conditions and largely focused on water quality not looking ahead and seeing what is coming down the pipeline, and also not looking at water quantity, which is going to impact all of the things that we do here in Eagle County, our local economies, our community values, and also that water quality constituent piece. Oh, I think I skipped over an important slide of basics of our watershed. So the Eagle River watershed is relatively small compared to the overall Colorado River Basin. It's about 970 square miles, which I think is extremely fun that that's also our area code. But I think the most notable fact on here is that we contribute about 3% of the annual flows to the Colorado River. So looking at the whole basin, we have a measurable impact on the Colorado River. So it's very important for us as Headwaters community, particularly the town of Minturn, as just our second municipality in the Eagle River watershed, as it's rolling downstream. We've got a great responsibility to make sure we're protecting this not only for us and our community, our wildlife, but also for those downstream. I just touched on the goal. In the next slide, we have the overarching goal of this plan, the more formal goal, but also the word cloud that was established after our first few community outreach meetings. But I think it's really important to note, and we'll talk about the community values a little bit more in depth next, that we really value our fish, we value clean water, we want high water quality, we want to have clean drinking water, but we also want to make sure that we have clean water for beer. That was measurable. That one called out. So no good beer without clean water. So good to note that in Eagle County. Next slide, please. Next, we're looking really at the community outreach strategy. So we started with some workshops and inviting people to come to us, and recognized that that wasn't going to be as effective. It's really hard to get people to come to meetings when they're in the evenings. People have other commitments. So we wanted to figure out a way to go to the community. And what we landed on was tabling at local events and also coming to folks in their summer camp drop-off lines. So in summer 2018, again, this was before I was there, so I don't know the exact nuances of how we did all of this, but we were collecting what we called the DOT exercise. So people would come up to our panel. We had a list of community values that they could essentially vote on, and we wanted to understand what people were valuing related to our river. So things like wildlife and biodiversity, agriculture, did they value non-functional irrigation, things like turf grass, and thankfully that was not elevated to the top. So we really were taking this to people where they were rather than asking them just to come to us. And another outreach strategy that we deployed was a web-based community survey really focused on boatable days. So we wanted to ask the boating community what their flow preferences were for the Eagle River so that we could then have a solid foundation to understand what a boatable day in Eagle County looks like and how future conditions could impact that. The next slide shows the final output of those community values, and the one at the top was wildlife and biodiversity. Our community really wants to make sure that while we are here and thriving, we want to make sure that our wildlife is also able to support itself, and that they're a really important part of our community. Same with clean drinking water. We want to make sure that whatever we do, we have access to provide for our growing population, for our current population, for our visitors, clean drinking water throughout the year, whether we have high flows or low flows. Agriculture was a top value, and while agriculture is not necessarily the economic driver of Eagle County anymore, it's not the top driver rather, there is a historical agricultural community here that is really important, and their land is really important for water quality, and they have an invested interest in making sure that they can maintain that. And those four on the bottom are really rooted in recreation. We have a recreation-based economy now, a tourism-based economy now here in Eagle County, as you're well aware of. So our community wants to make sure that we can not only do that for ourselves, but our economy can be supported through our flows. So things like recreational boating, angling, snowmaking even, and things just that look beautiful because of our rivers. The next slide is really covering kind of the model of this plan, which is the bread and butter. So this is what took the longest time. This plan was catalyzed in 2018 with the thought that it would be done in 2 years. It took 6, and about $500,000 with grant funding from the Colorado Water Conservation Board. But this was what took us the most amount of time, and it was a lot of back and forth with stakeholders. And ultimately we landed, the challenge was figuring out the geographic scope of this model and what the outputs would be. Ultimately, the stakeholder group decided that the model, the technical analysis for this plan was the confluence of Homestay Creek with Eagle River and downstream. So basically the town of Red Cliff downstream to the Eagle River confluence with Colorado River in Dot Zero, and Gore Creek from the confluence of Black Gore Creek to its confluence with the Eagle River. And that is just for the technical analysis, so the more specified look that we'll look at in a couple of slides, the next slide rather. But the overarching plan, the community values, the objectives, the strategies are not necessarily limited to this geographic scope, because we were not asking our community when we started the outreach process to limit their geographic scope. That was something that came out of the technical process. And what that technical process is really looking at is those future conditions. So looking at population growth, and increased urbanization, so more impervious surfaces, more parking lots, more roofs, more solid structures within Eagle County, less of that open land. Looking at climate change, so more variable flows, less snowpack, less predictability within our snowpack. Local water rights development, so build out of local water rights, something like Bolts Lake, for example, and then future Trans Mountain diversions, potentially with something like the Eagle River MOU project in the Homestake Valley. And what that model kicked out to us was this incredible report card. So this is taking all of that technical analysis. There's probably 1,000 pages of data, of process, and it came out with this very clean, somewhat overwhelming report card for reach-specific sections of Eagle River and of Gore Creek. And we also did a smaller modeling effort on Brush Creek and Gypsum Creek in the lower parts of the watershed, as we're seeing a lot more development down there and wanted to understand those a little bit more specifically. So here we're looking at the Eagle River from Cross Creek to Gore Creek. And the paragraph portion of this is really the quick summary of historic and current conditions. So what does the river look like? Kind of summarizing those colorful dots, squares rather, on the left side of that bigger chart. And then as we're looking at that chart, the left side is the existing condition, and it's looking at the functional assessment of the river, which I like to say is the things that make a river, the processes that they partake in without even being asked. Sediment flow, habitat, river form, so that bending of the river, the thing that Camp Hale doesn't have, for example, stream flows, whatever makes a river, that's what that is looking at. And as we're looking at the right side, that is the future conditions. So the climate change, population growth, increased diversion from the Eagle River. What are those going to do to our conditions, and are they going to get worse? Are they going to get better? It will help us. It is going to help us prioritize the work that we need to do now in order to mitigate those negative impacts moving forward that could impact our community values. For this particular section, what we're seeing is low high peak flow frequency. So that is largely due to the reservoir that is already existing in the Homestake Valley. That is a huge Trans Mountain diversion that is really siphoning off a lot of our flows. So that is a failing grade for this existing condition, but that is kind of prevalent as we continue to move downstream. We have a challenge with high flows and high peak flow frequency because we have this Trans Mountain diversion, which they have the entitled water right for. Another challenge, which is probably not a surprise, is that we have a challenge with metals in this stretch of river due to the Eagle Mine. So we're working consistently with CDPHE in the state and EPA to try to figure out how we can do a little better and make sure that we can have better water quality here. One of the overarching themes that we're seeing within this plan is that as we move forward into the future and we see more diversions, potential reservoir development, less snowpack, flows are going to be a challenge, and the cascading effect of what that looks like for temperature, for boatable days. So trying to figure out how we can better manage flows and protect our something like stream temperature right now. And the next slide talks a little bit about some of the strategies. So these strategies are rooted within management objectives, which there were too many to put on this slide, but all of the objectives tie directly to our community values, and I think is really where our local towns, our local water providers can root themselves into as they're making decisions for future development, for new things that are coming within our towns. We're finding that our business as usual is not going to work. We're going to have to change how we're seeing our rivers and how we are managing the land adjacent to our river if we want to make sure that we're protecting these community values and this incredible asset that we have flowing through our backyard. And these objectives are really tactile. They're not necessarily as lofty. They are somewhat vague because we want to be able to fit a lot of projects into them, but they are things that we can really grasp onto. And from those objectives, our stakeholder group created a list of well over 30 projects that we pared down into about 9 categories. And projects is kind of the overarching term. They are restoration projects, they are policy initiatives, they're continued studies, things that we need to understand a little more, and programs that we need to develop, something like Beyond Lawn that we're already working on locally in the county. And some of the other examples of a project would be in-stream and riparian habitat, so making sure that we have functioning habitat for both aquatic life and terrestrial life along our streams. Natural infrastructure, things like cottonwood galleries that can really help with temperature issues as we move downstream, and management of our recreation. So understanding how we're accessing the river, is it sustainable, is it safe, and how do we need to better manage recreation, not only to protect the experience of recreation, but to protect that natural environment that we're recreating within. So next we're talking a little bit about implementation. What's next? Right now I'm going to all of the towns and the county and our local water providers and asking you all to formally adopt this project, this this project that we've been working on for the last 6 years, all the hard work of staff and our investment of time and money as a community, that we're serious about our rivers and that we want to protect them and that we can, as a community, make changes now to help protect this value, this asset for our local community and our future community members. More specifically, what are we doing? Thank you to the town intern for writing a letter of support to a grant I recently submitted to the Colorado Water Conservation Board. I'm looking to expand capacity at our organization. There's, like I said, a list of about 30 projects that we have. Most of them are not, actually all of them are not design ready. So the goal with this grant from CWCB will be to take the next 2 to 3 years, add a staff person who can really manage those and get them off the ground into doing some fundraising, doing stakeholder building around these specific plans and projects so that we can actually start to get some of the work done. Another thing that we're working on is the Eagle River Fund, which is an endowment fund that will catalyze projects within the Eagle River Plan, Eagle River Community Water Plan, and our goal is to have a $5 million fund that will kick out around $200,000 a year for local grant making process. So it is not just for our organization to tap into, but rather for our community. We wanted to not just give a list of projects with this community water plan, but to provide actual capital so that we can start to see these projects and get them done. We'd love to be the first ones in the door with money as you're going to apply for a grant for stormwater infrastructure upgrades or smart metering or these things that are rooted in the plan, protecting our objectives and our values. We're hopeful that we'll have $5 million by 2027 in that operating fund. We have $1 million committed right now, so it's going to be a long haul, but that's another thing we're working on right now. Another project that I think would be relevant to you all, just because it's close to your backyard, is our Wearyman Creek Water Quality Improvement Project. That is a project that's listed within this plan and something that we already have an agreement with the Forest Service to start. It's in the NEPA process right now, and we're kicking off our public involvement process with some contractors, and that is to reduce sedimentation in Wearyman Creek and Turkey Creek, which is a drinking water supply for the town of Red Cliff and a tributary to the Eagle, while creating a sustainable recreation access for OHV off-highway vehicle users in the Shrine Pass area. And my dramatic slide at the end is, why are we doing this? Well, we're doing this to secure a vibrant future. We really want to make sure that we can continue to live here. We want our wildlife to be here. We want to make sure that we have this incredible river, our economy for future generations. And it's going to take not only our organization, but all of our community members, all of our communities helping us make sure that we can do that. Any questions?
Well, it was amazing that the Eagle River supplies 3% of the Colorado River.
Yeah, we yield about, I think, 415,000 acre feet annually.
I had no idea it was that big a contributor. You mentioned the Eagle Mine impact on this stretch of the river, and trying to, they've been doing remediation for a long time, and still it's affecting our stretch of the river. Is there what you said, have you talked to, I believe you said the EPA you got working on it along
with the state, CDPHE and EPA. So we've been in continued conversation with them. There's been a lot of turnover locally, myself included, and if both organizations, EPA and CDPHE, there's new staff. So I think we're in kind of a learning pattern right now, and there's nothing really big happening. We just have a delisting of part of the Superfund site, I think, in the Rex Flats area last year. Which is great, a sign of success, and there has been a lot of work done. But we're still seeing elevated metals. So the river is safe. I've had EPA staff say that they would eat the fish out of this stretch of river, but it's not what it was and it's not what we'd like it to be, so there's still more work to do. So we're trying to figure out how to urge the state and the federal government to kind of prioritize this and get some of the more important projects, some of the bigger projects that are done that maybe are not the low-hanging fruit that they used to be.
Okay, any other questions for?
One thing I should note is the waterplan.eagleriverco.org is the water plan's website itself. That's a relatively unique feature for our watershed. Most others don't have such an interactive webpage, and that was very purposeful because this is such a dense document. So even that report card that I showed up there goes into a little bit more depth, a little bit more intuitively on the website. You can hover over those arrows and it'll show you exactly why it has that rating of a C and then why it's going to be degraded with climate change. So really a helpful document that has all of our objectives, all of our strategies, and you can also access all of the thousands of pages of technical appendices if you get bored at night and want to go to sleep.
And could you state that website again?
Yeah, it's waterplan.eagleriverco.org. In that packet, that presentation, there are a couple of those links scattered throughout, and the QR codes will go right to that webpage.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
It might be good to get that QR code on our website. Send a link to the Enclave. Okay, anyways, thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate the time, guys.
You bet. Okay, so we have a resolution up in front of us. If there's no further discussion, do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve resolution number 35, series 2024, a resolution approving and adopting the 2024 Eagle River Community Water Plan for the town of Minturn, Colorado.
I'll second that.
Motion by Kate, second by Gusty. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. Great job. Okay, next we have resolution 36, series 2024, a resolution to approve the PRV meter house improvements. Now we're getting into the interesting stuff.
Oh, the excitement. So we have Jared Limke here, who actually is quite excited about this. He has been working with his team for quite some time to model out and analyze the PRV, which pressure reducing valve, for utilizing both a tank 2 and tank 3 in the town of Minturn to their fullest capacities. So to do that, they analyzed the best location for that. They determined the best location was in our current master meter pit, which is near Steam Master. It's indoors. We will go into later detail about how we don't want to get money from the state because for an indoor project, they wanted us to do a full environmental analysis, along with many other pieces of what I considered red tape. So with that, Jared is with us to describe the project to ensure everyone understands what we're trying to do and why, which is to increase storage capacity for the town. And then to move forward with an approval for the initial project so that we can go out to RFP and bring back a contract for you all to approve to have work start this fall and hopefully be completed next spring. So with that, Jared, thanks so much for waiting. I'll turn it over to you.
Happy to. Thank you, Michelle. Jared Limke, 1670 Broadway, Denver. I presume everybody has the documents that we sent. If not, I'll do a great job of describing what our project is. So happy to be back.
Actually, Jared, just so you know, that 300-page document, I didn't include that one.
Oh, you have to include that one.
175, or it was a lot of pages that, so they got the drawings and the pictures.
Perfect.
And they got the cover memo and they got the engineer's opinion of probable cost, but I saved them the pain of the manual.
We already had 415 pages.
All righty, great. Okay, well, I have those drawings on my screen as well, and if you guys have them accessible, I'm looking at sheet 6 or 00D601. If not, Just feel free to follow along, close your eyes and imagine. This project is born out of the creation or the construction of what is known, to me at least, as Tank 3. That's the one that was constructed 2022 near the water plant. That project was originally, if you recall, supposed to be 2 tanks of identical size and height. Because the bids came in twice the load amount, 1 tank was constructed. And what that leaves you with is needing to maintain what we call tank number 2, constructed in 1996 further north into town, as the only other tank serving the distribution system in Minturn. If you look at that drawing, if you have it, tank 3 on the left-hand side is about twice as tall as tank number 2. Remember, tank 3 is the newer one than tank number 2. And what that means is that if you were to fill tank 3 to its fullest, tank 2 would overflow. They're hydraulically connected with nothing in between them to stop that water. What this project does is in our opinion, the lowest cost option for allowing you to utilize all of that upper half storage in tank 3 while maintaining all of your storage without overflowing tank 2. And we're doing that with those valves installed in the transmission main at the meter house. And those valves will be controlled automatically using radio signals from tank 2 to the Maloit Park tank down to the meter house. And so they'll be able to respond to various water levels in tank 2, and they'll be automatically programmed to open and close when that tank needs water, and when that tank gets to a programmed high level set point, the valves will close. Thereby, tank 3 will be allowed to fill to its fullest. Valves will open, allow water to flow from tank 3 into tank 2's distribution system until it reaches its full water level, and then they'll close again. And that's how the distribution system is proposed to operate henceforth. Any questions on the concept?
No, that's a good explanation. I got it. Everybody else okay?
I'm okay. I just have a question on the lining. Are we gonna try to do that this year too with tank 2? I seen that it had in there and
Yep.
like estimate was 140. I just was.
That's right. So it is our goal to try to move forward with the lining as well. That will be a separate RFP, but we'll all come back to council for approval.
All right, great. Thanks.
Perfect. And so just one more other thing is in that drawing package. That was part of our bid drawings, sheet 01D101 or 12 of 14. So near the back of those 14-page drawing package. That basically shows the new pipe and valves that's proposed to be installed inside the existing meter house. It was a very serendipitous place for us to place this equipment. Again, lowest cost option. There are alternatives of places to put this equipment, but they all involve digging a hole around the pipe, installing a vault, and putting all of this complicated, sophisticated infrastructure in a vault that would need power and communication to it, which the meter house already has. So that's why this location was chosen. It's technically feasible. It's simple to construct. I wouldn't say easy, and easy to operate and maintain. And John Volk's been involved consulting with us as far as sample points, valve types, equipment preferences, etc. This whole time. So
I would like to move for approval of resolution number 36, series 2024, resolution approving the installation of a pressure reducing valve to balance water pressure between tank 2 and tank 3 on the Minturn water system in the town of Minturn, Colorado.
Eric, seconds.
We have a motion by Lynn and a second by Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Way to go, Jared. I'll bring you more often.
it's a record.
We're moving along now.
Who came up
Alrighty.
with using the meter housing?
That was Jared.
Good idea, Sharon. You probably saved us a few $100,000, huh?
You did. Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. We have Resolution 37, Series 2024, resolution appointing Historic Preservation Commission members. So we have 2 vacancies and we have 2 applicants, right?
Yes.
All yours, Madison.
Thank you. I can make this pretty short and sweet. The mayor was correct. I have 2 vacancies. I have 2 applicants. HBC terms are for 3 years, so anybody appointed today would be in office until 2027, or unless obviously they resign sooner. So I technically have ballots for y'all once y'all are done with the interview process. Y'all could, but if so choose, y'all can make the decision to just appoint the 2, given that there are 2 slots, without actually going through the ballot process. So I believe both applicants are here to answer any questions that y'all may have.
So I'd like to poll the board. Is there an interest in doing an interview process, or shall we just go ahead and appoint them?
Read their letters. I feel confident in their abilities. I'm
Hello.
willing to appoint.
I'm in favor of appointing. I know them both.
Okay, so we'll be appointing Robert Creasy and Lynn Teach. Lynn Teach is doing double duty. And thank you for that. Appreciate it.
As far as that goes, Tracy was in a while back, applying for the planning and zoning, and she didn't feel good about that. Should we contact her and say if she ever wants to do another position like the P and Z, that she's more than welcome to?
I looked to Madison, but I believe she's aware. Yes.
She is. I just wanted to make sure. I didn't want her to feel offended by it.
Right, I believe she withdrew her application both times because there were enough applicants to fill the spots that were open.
Okay.
She threw her hat into the ring just in case there weren't.
Perfect.
Okay, so do we have a motion for appointment for resolution 37?
Find it, I'll make a motion.
Beat you to it.
That helps, yeah.
Make a motion to approve Resolution 37, Series 2024, a resolution appointing historic preservation community members, Lynn and Robert.
I'll second that.
Motion by Kate, second by Gusty. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Welcome. Good job.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank
you
you.
all for doing that. I appreciate it. Okay, next we have Resolution 38, Series 2024, a resolution approving a contract with Ewing Construction for the extension of the Eco Trail in Minturn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as you all saw, we had the construction of the Eco Trail from the Dow Junction connection to the northern portion of town. It stopped perfectly at the town boundaries. It stopped in that location because at that time, we did not have approvals from Union Pacific Railroad for the necessary easements to cross their parcel, which is the next parcel in line heading south. That approval did not come until Minturn North project was approved, at which point we were able to move forward with construction. However, construction was done for the fall season. Fast forward to the spring, the former construction company could not return. The county reached out to the new construction company on site, which is Ewing Construction, handling the construction already at the Minturn North property. So they are already mobilized and able to create efficiencies in cost savings. That being said, the county was unable to get a contract through in time for construction to occur this summer. The county, as you saw with their letter of intent, has offered to pay for this project for Minturn, even though it is in Minturn, which is incredibly nice of them. So I am simply asking if we can approve the contract, which the county will reimburse Minturn for.
Is that for part of discussion?
No. Okay, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 38, Series 2024, a resolution to approve a professional services agreement between Ewing Trucking and Construction, LLC, and the town of Minturn for the construction of the Eco Trail connection at Minturn Road, and authorizing the mayor of the town of Minturn to sign the agreement.
Eric seconds.
Motion by Kate, second by Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you.
We love deals like that. Okay, now we get into ordinances. We have ordinance 17, series 2024, first reading, an ordinance approving a short-term rental tax ballot question for the November 5th, 2024 general election.
We have Jay Brunvand, town clerk, and for this purpose, also town treasurer, here to talk about this.
Go ahead, Jay.
I will try to make this quickly. I've noticed you guys are kind of moving along at a hefty pace, so I won't mar that. This is quite simply to put a ballot question on the November election. Tabor requires us to only do tax questions in November or during our April municipal elections. This is a first reading of the ordinance, so you'll see this again at the next meeting. Again, this is to increase the residential short-term rental tax, sales tax, lodging tax from 1.5% to 6.5%. It is for residential only. It will not affect things like the Minturn Inn or Hotel Minturn or the Eagle River Inn. And this would, if it does pass in November, this will be effective on 1/1/25. If anybody's got any questions, we went through this in pretty good detail last meeting, so I'll go for questions instead of keep going.
Any questions for Jay?
Jay, I've got a question. Just confirm that the Minturn is DeBruce, right?
Yes, sir, we are. And you are not the first attorney to ask that, so I actually have a special file that I can send you that has all of the previous attorneys.
That would be very helpful.
Okay, I will do that.
So basically, this is increasing short-term rentals by 5. And what people will be paying it is people doing short-term rentals, and this is a fairly average sales tax, or most lodging does in the valley. So it's not going to hurt anybody from a competitive point of view for sure. So with that, ordinance. Public hearing. Does anyone have comments on our 5% sales tax raise?
And there's nobody in the audience, in the Zoom audience, with their hand up.
Thank you, Jay. Close the public hearing. Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 17, an ordinance of the town of Minturn calling a special election on November 5th, 2024, fixing ballot titles and questions and setting forth other details relating toward therefore.
Does anybody want a second?
Oh, Eric seconds.
Okay, so motion by Gusty, second by Eric. Roll call, please.
Lynn, I.
Okay.
Gusty, aye.
Eric, aye.
Earl, aye. Brian?
He left.
Is he gone?
Yeah, he left.
Okay, fine. We have our ordinance number 17, first reading is approved. Next, we have ordinance number 18, series 2024, an ordinance approving a downtown development authority ballot question for the November 5th, 2024 general election.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This has been an ongoing discussion for the past 2.5 years in an effort to determine if there is downtown business stakeholder approval for such an effort. Through Bill Schrum and Cindy Creek's very hard work, working with our downtown stakeholders, they have determined that there is an interest which was brought forward at a prior council meeting confirming that they request that the council approve a ballot question. With that, Jim Mann created the memo that was sent to you all a few days ago and added to the packet for review, the pro forma for the potential ability to bond on behalf of the Downtown Development Authority. So with that, we have our experts with us tonight, Bill Schrum and Jim Mann. If any of you have any questions prior to considering supporting a ballot question for a Downtown Development Authority.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Does anybody have any particular questions?
I don't have any particular question. I just want to clarify, when this goes to ballot issue for voting, it's just the affected people that can vote on it, right? If you own a business or you own the property, commercial, it's not open to general election then?
That's correct.
Okay.
Now, tell me how this pans out, Bill and Jim. I'm interested in numbers as well. So once, I'm sure it's going to get approved on the ballot. So it's just a matter of going through administrative, legal stuff. I mean, I assume we've got templates that we can work off of on this, but how long does it take to get the organization established?
There are some actual procedural steps that you would need to take. Once the ballot measure would pass, if that was the case, and we would hope that it would be so, that there would be an ordinance by the council to adopt the bylaws. You would then need to process and develop and have approved a plan of development. That plan of development must be brought forward for both a public hearing and for planning and zoning to at least review. They don't necessarily need to approve, but review. And then ultimately that plan of development is brought forward again to the council for your required approval. Once the plan of development is approved, you then need to file a statement with your county assessor that would declare that you have the intention to start collecting tax increment finance. And at that point, you are then ready to go.
Go ahead.
I have a question just about, I'm a little confused about what the district includes. I know it includes the 100 block. I know it includes the Scara, but it seems to include some other properties further down, but doesn't include some other real commercial properties that are in the area. And I'm wondering, what it does include and how the decisions were made about what it should include and not include.
And Bill, I'm happy to speak to that since I played a role in helping to create the initial map. So the initial map we expect will be very different from the map as it moves forward. The initial map is just for primarily the core group of folks we've been trying to get as stakeholders to start the DDA. And then once the DDA is started, we look to bring on additional folks that are interested, and we hope there will be lots to
That's
take
my
part.
question. It's not fixed in stone.
It is not fixed in stone, and we expect it to evolve and grow over time.
Thank you.
In addition, we actually will be changing the map, I expect, from first reading to second reading, Bill, to include the Forest Service parcel, as we discussed, to get us to the Grouse Creek trailhead area to help in the event that at some point in the future, the Downtown Development Authority finds a value in creating access to trailheads in a safe and healthy manner, they can use funds to do that.
And that would still leave the option of one day connecting Dowd if that ever became a thing.
Correct.
And further down south as well, down to the Battleground Trading Post or whatever the business is, I forget. Okay. Any further questions on that? Jim, do you have projections? I see we've got the conservative, moderate, and aggressive layout as far as fair market value of what we have now. Could you just kind of go over that, please?
Sure. We did a fair amount of analysis on various development concepts within the proposed district and looking at what potentially could happen in some of these areas if lots were combined, some were developed on an individual basis. But we looked at the downtown or the 100 block standards and said, okay, you've got your first floor, most are going to be commercial, second floor would be residential. And then on the aggressive side, we included that third incentive floor that is included in your design standards. And that's how we gauge kind of from the minimum or the conservative approach to what would be available to the more aggressive approach. The moderate is simply an average of the two. We assumed that residential, any development of residential would be $688 a square foot, which is the average of the residential that is currently in existence within the district in the study area. On the commercial side, we were looking at $250 a square foot. which is on the higher side, which is some of the newer commercial spaces that are within the 100 block. And then we also assume that if parcels were combined to make a larger parcel and a more attractive development, that the land would also have an increase in value. And we set that at 125. Again, that's kind of the average of some of the larger parcels in terms of what the land value would be. All of those increased value would be considered increment above and beyond the base. You do have to take out the what you're demolishing a property, take out the demolished property value and refill that before you actually have the increment. But in most cases, based upon what the development values would be, the development values would be much greater than what the existing values are. We looked at an annual appreciation of properties or a biennial appreciation of properties at 4%, which is extremely conservative from what you've been experiencing. But we didn't necessarily want to rely on, the growth value from an economic standpoint, as opposed to new construction or redevelopment costs. And so that's where we ended up with kind of a fair market value conservatively. If a lot of things happen in the district, of about 21 million on the conservative side. If you get to the aggressive side, it's more than double that at about 44 million. And that's where we end up with a net present value revenue stream, and we use 5% borrowing to get to that point. So that revenue stream would support somewhere around $3 million of bonding to upwards of $5.7 million of bonding.
Okay. And so those numbers that you're given, that's a kind of a one-time thing, right? As far as the property values going up at, from build out at the 100 block, and that's all the money until more appreciation, higher assessments happen on other properties. Is that
basically correct? So once you get the new build out, and Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but the appreciation on the new value stays in the TIF district and it is counted as increment. It is not.
No. So to what Jim's calculation basically states is that if there is a new valuation and there is a natural appreciation, but based on that new value, that is measured against the baseline. And the reason why is because the appreciation is deemed to be different because of the construction or development that's taken place, right? So yeah, generally speaking, if there was new development that had taken place and there is a natural appreciation that happens on that new development, that appreciation is taken against the current baseline to determine growth in increments. So yeah.
Did you take into account the history of commercial buildings in Minturn, new buildings that have apartments above them, such as the building on the corner of Norman and Main Street? Because that building, I don't think, has appreciated wildly over the years.
We did take into consideration some appreciation on the new construction. But again, it's at a very conservative rate, which is 4% biannually.
And as government assessments go up on the property, through as they tend to do, does that assessments increase even with no actual capital improvements? Does that create a revenue stream into the DDA as well?
My understanding is no.
That's correct.
If the base value of the district, if no new development occurs and that property appreciates 10%, that 10% is added to the base value. It's only on new development where the appreciation can occur.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I could add one sort of maybe not quite so hypothetical, but a case that might vary from that slightly. There are instances where you could make a case that if the town was to invest in additional water and sewer service, and that horizontal infrastructure by writ of additional capacity allows for a higher potential use on a lot that is adjacent, you could make a case to the assessor that there would be a nominal increase to increment because of the built investment creating value that was not there previously. Does that make sense? So if you increase the water capacity and a lot becomes more valuable because you could do more with that lot, the town could make a case for a slight amount of that increment to be added. But generally speaking, the way Jim described it is correct, that there would only be increment generated if there was a capital development on that site.
So just looking into the future, I was not planning on having Jim or Bill attend the second reading. So just to ensure that if at all possible, if we can get all questions asked now, that would be helpful. If not, of course, we can email more questions to them in between first and second readings.
Let's see. So you mentioned, okay, bonding. Can you give me an overview of that? You're talking about bonding, and I just need to understand that.
So the net present value numbers that were included in my memorandum between roughly 3 million and 5.7 million. If all the development that we kind of hypothetically looked at were to happen, the revenue stream that would be generated over the life of the tax increment district, the DDA, would its present value down to these dollar amounts. That's the maximum you could borrow and have that revenue stream pay for the principal and interest on that debt. And obviously, it depends on when development occurs. It depends on what the interest rate is when you borrow the funds. Those are all factors that as you get closer to the point where you would borrow against this revenue stream or the future revenue stream, we'd have to do additional analysis on to make sure that, one, the revenue stream is going to support the debt payments, and two, it's a debt that we're going to be able to sell in the market. We could go out there and say, yeah, we've got a revenue stream of $7 million, but if we can't support it, that there is going to be a revenue stream there, nobody's going to buy that debt. No one's going to loan you the money. So we have to be cautious as we get to that point that we're not overextending ourselves. I would, in my experience with tax increment financing, you really need to have at least one project in the, being developed before somebody's going to consider loaning you money against that revenue stream and future revenue streams.
A follow-up question. This is Mike Sawyer, the town attorney. Can the town lend money to the DDA from its reserve fund to be repaid through TIF financing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it can. There are several examples of that with DDAs and towns through intergovernmental agreements around the state.
And if you are going to do that, I would recommend that you adopt a reimbursement resolution at the outset, so that if you did ultimately go to the bond market, you could reimburse yourself with tax exempt debt for the money that you advanced to the district.
Yeah, so to get to the point that the risk associated with the type of repayment stream provided by TIF financing at the beginning is pretty rocky. So an option, not suggesting this is what you should do, but an option is the town could choose to make a loan from its reserves to the DDA.
history of mountain real estate is so full of crashes and then huge increases, and people never able to predict when the crash is about to come. That seems rather risky.
Could I make a comment regarding general practice that I've seen in this regard with DDAs around the state? During the point of the bylaws and forming a DDA, should a DDA be adopted, one of the things that I encourage everyone who is forming a DDA to do, and one of the things that we took on in Town of Eagle when I helped them form their DDA, was adopt policies around allocating funds in such a way that it was a pay for performance. And unless you were very, very sure that there was a certain project that required a bonding up front, that while you can do traditional municipal bonding, as Jim is outlining with the potential debt authorization against TIF, the most common allocation of TIF around the state is generally done in agreements such that you are not required to pay until you have a development that actually generates the TIF that you then give back to the developer. And in doing so, you're not putting any obligation on the reserves, even if there are reserves. You're not putting an obligation on those reserves until you have TIF generated. Generally in the bond market, there are a little bit of financial penalties to this because it's not quite as sure as a flat commitment to repay. So you might pay for that with a couple additional points in the interest rate. But it is very common, if you were to do something like that, that you have a repayment that is conditional on TIF being received. And that way, that sort of a policy does not put at risk the town. It also allows for you to have developers come forward with projects that everyone, can feel good that would likely pencil should a project move forward. They have a sense that there would be some support once the project is out of the ground, and the town or the DDA is not out over a barrel making commitments with their funds without having any sort of surety coming through.
We have such a bad history in this town of commercial buildings, new commercial buildings being built and not cash flowing for decades.
And which is part of the reason why it's very common to make sure that the repayment is contingent on the money coming in through TIF first. That's a very, very, very common practice here.
So a slight follow-up question on that. So the TIF language in the debt issuance question that's included in this ordinance does not contain a maximum interest rate. In other words, I think it would be determined it's whatever the market rate is. But it does contain a provision capping any premium of issuance at 3%. And I guess I wanted to ask you in particular, Jim, if you think for this particular type of debt, if that is a reasonable premium to live with, or if we need to increase that.
I think that's reasonable. I think likely for the amount of debt that you're going to generate or you might be issuing, you're not going to generate that much of a premium. It's not going to be that big of an issue. And I think capping at 3% is just fine.
Okay, any further questions? Okay, we'll open it up for public comment. Any questions from the public? Jay?
No, sir, there is not.
Okay, so close the public hearing. Any further questions or discussion? Okay, do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 18, series 2024, an ordinance of the town of Minturn, Colorado, determining the necessity of establishing the Minturn Downtown Development Authority, and two, submitting the question of establishing the Minturn Downtown Development Authority, and three, a debt authorization question to an election of qualified electors at a coordinated county election to be held on November 5th, 2024.
Kate seconds.
There's a motion by Aaron, second by Kate. Roll call, please.
Then I.
Kate,
Dusty, aye.
Eric, aye.
Earl, aye. We have a new ordinance. Okay.
thank you, Jim and Bill.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Been a long
you.
run. Okay, next we have Resolution 39, Series 2024, a resolution for Minturn North PUD to request exemption from Section 16, 17, and 110 underground utilities.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is pretty simple, so I think we can keep it quick. Taylor? So Minturn North has been a good partner so far in the construction progress occurring over in the Taylor Street neighborhood. Part of their need right now is to obtain power in a temporary nature. So this resolution identifies their ability to get power via a pole for a maximum extended period of 2 years, thereby which at that point they will have all of their utilities buried and undergrounded, and this pole can go away. Did I summarize that?
That's correct.
Great. And so that's what we're looking for approval from council tonight.
Sounds very straightforward. Any questions from the board?
What's the height of that?
I'm gonna introduce our Director of Construction who can answer the technical questions.
Excel is going to be installing a
Name and
new
address.
pole similar to the ones on Taylor Avenue on Minturn North property, and then from there we'll go to a temporary panel. I don't know the exact height of the poles, but they're exactly what's there now.
Derek, can we get a quick name and address for the record?
Derek Gerhardt, 6'9" Marble, Edwards, Colorado.
I don't think right now there are any lines going east-west across Taylor, like they all parallel. So I guess my only concern would be what things won't fit under this that would have a 2-year impact on the 20 people on the other side. Like somebody else is doing construction and they can't get their machine through because there's now an east-west line or something like that.
I can get a height for you guys, but I would say it's tall enough for any truck and equipment to get underneath for sure. Is there any open lots down there still for building?
Well, there's some that are like currently building. I mean, I don't know, cause I don't know what they need, but that my only concern is that like I don't wanna cut off that side of Taylor Street by having this perpendicular power line that then prohibits somebody else from doing a thing.
Right. The two houses that are under construction, this is north of that. The pole that I'm thinking of coming off is north of those houses that are currently being constructed.
Okay. Alright.
Okay, do you think, would it be reasonable to put a minimum line height? The poles have to be located so that there's a minimum clearance height over the right of way.
I mean, I imagine if there's like probably some sort of requirement for that, right? This is like.
Yeah, this would be, it's all
400
installed by
pairs, like a big
Excel.
power,
I mean,
yeah.
they have very strict guidelines, and so I thought about that before the meeting, that I should know the height of that wire, but
Yeah, it's standards. Excel has. Yep. They'll apply, I'm sure. Okay. Any other questions that we have? Okay, since this is a resolution, I don't have to open the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 39, series 2024, resolution approving the request for exemption from section 16-17-110 underground utilities temporary at the Minturn North Development, town of Minturn.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Gusty, second by Lynn. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Right.
Thank you.
Get your power.
Thanks for waiting.
Yep. Next we have resolution 40, series 2024, a resolution approving the extension of the Battle Mountain Settlement approvals period.
We're close. But we're not quite there. So we currently have a settlement period that I think expires tomorrow. So there's in the settlement agreement, there's two operative dates. There's something called the approvals deadline. That is the date by which Battle has to get their approvals from the town. It also is the date by which the town has the ability to do due diligence and to determine if this is the direction it wants to go. then there's the closing deadline. And so what we're proposing is we're gonna keep the closing deadline the same at August 22nd. But we would extend the approvals deadline through the, let's see, the Monday after the 7th, so that would be the 11th, August 11th, I believe, maybe the 12th. The Monday after your first August council meeting, which is, that's the 12th.
I've got a question.
Yes.
So all the due diligence that we've been doing, is there a time, date set where there's a report to the council of what that due diligence shows?
You got 30 seconds in front of me. The next thing I wanted to say is that Michelle and I are preparing a report that we will be delivering to council and to the public on the August 7th meeting. And we'll go through each of the elements of what was contained in the settlement agreement and what we've done to gain understanding on behalf of the town, what things have been done for approvals for Battle Mountain, and then just to give a short recap of what happens between that point and closing.
All right. So this is the last delay resolution. Right?
This is the last delay resolution, yeah.
Awesome. I'll do that. Okay, any other questions?
Make a motion to approve resolution 40, series 2024, a resolution authorizing the mayor of the town of Minturn to sign the third amendment to a settlement agreement between the Battle Mountain entities and the town of Minturn, extending the approval period and the settlement agreement term.
Second that.
Motion by Kate, second by Gusty. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Done. And we don't have a discussion item because we've already done it. How about future meetings? Any ideas, anybody wanting to add more to our agenda? Future agendas? Nobody?
Items will be added
Yes.
for you.
Automatically.
Have no doubt.
August 7th looks a little heavy, doesn't it?
And I can say, just to give you all a heads up, that later this fall, discussions will begin around public interest in what should occur on the parcel C lot over at the Minturn North. It's something that needs to start being discussed, what people want to see.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Motion by Kate, second by Gusty, all in favor?
Aye.
Jump right in there.